that's one way to do it. There are many ways that you can recapitulate. Some people do it walking, and you can shift. But the basic breath that was described in popular books that Carlos wrote is we're breathing from the right shoulder to the left, and then so you can do it either way. You can go from left to right, but the point is that you're going to maybe inhale, take an experience or a memory. I could take, for example, I'm at a meeting and I think I need to correct somebody or I'm going to interrupt them because, that genius's role is trying to reassert itself. So I'm going to interrupt, cut to the chase, and let them know, no, there's a much simpler way, except that causes a jarring thing for most people and doesn't really work. And so then I might get like, oh, I did it again, and not, or wow, he really should let me finish. Okay, I've spent some energy there. I sent some energy out from the core. We have vital centers at the core of the body. Okay, I'm going to call back that, and it might be little energetic filaments that I stuck on that person with judgment, really. That creates a kind of glue, sticky thing between me and the other person. So I'm going to pause, realign myself, and I might do this breath, or I might do some of the tensegrity movements, which can also shift and pull that back. But one way to do it is I'm going to inhale. Okay, so I'm going to think about the judgment I had about the computer person and see if I can notice what I was doing. Sometimes we're not aware, and for sure the jaw's getting tight. Okay, I've got some awareness. The dialogue was, he's so entitled and he thinks he knows better than everyone else. A perfect mirror for one of my patterns, but I'm not maybe aware. And then I'm going to breathe in. Or, if you could recall, something really got you, if somebody didn't deliver the tapes on time or whatever it was, or pattern that you might have, and then call it up, and then we're going to inhale, call back that energy that we left in that scene with the other person, and exhale anything that we might have taken on. Maybe they sent something back to us that we really don't need. It's not about, hey, take this back, but it's just kind of cleaning up. It's like, okay, I borrowed this book from you, you have my vase, I'm going to give that, we're going to clean, and I'm going to deal with what's mine, and I'll let you deal with what's yours, so I'm not entangled in this unproductive way. Inhale, and then exhale, and maybe I'll do that a few times until I feel it's clear, and I'm not so involved. You can do a sequence of tensegrity movements, and you also feel a similar clarity. You could play that scene another way to recapitulate, to review, get somebody, talk about it as a witness or a friend, and play that scene out and play yourself and ask them to play the other person that was driving you nuts. And maybe if you could have 2 or 3 people who would play it out. And then do some breathing, exhale, do a tensegrity breath. Then you could, if you really want to go into theater of infinity, you look at, well, what do I see now that I didn't see 5 minutes ago about this scene? And okay, what would I like to do differently? And another option you have is play the other part. So I would play the computer guy, and I would ask somebody to play me, and I'd give them cues on how to play me, and that's going to give me some more information almost every time. I get to see from a maybe more external view what I'm embodying in that scene, what I brought, And then I could even shift back and, okay, now with all that awareness, how would I play this now? And it's a theater of the magical passes, these positions that come from dreaming, because those are positions of well-being. So when I evolve that scene, ultimately, hopefully, I'll be able to play my role instead of with these kind of positions, the fear-based. I can play it with a more heart-based or centered-based positions.
So that would also be not doing, I imagine.
It definitely ties to not doing. Carlos ultimately said not doing is, if we look at what it really is at its core, if we go to the energetic level, it's interrupting the usual flow of our energy. So it's definitely breaking. We're not going to play that same role.
Right.
So it's totally a not doing. It's like looking at something that it's definitely going to change the way our energy moves.
You're into Tensegrity. You want to help shape human awareness and help us evolve. What's your abstract purpose?
Well, the way to shape anything in the world is to shape yourself, and even shaping it, there's a little element of control that maybe it's about. Carlos would say, we're looking at the purpose is really, can we connect with that flow of infinity? And there's a flow of energy. Energy flows in the universe. Can we quiet ourselves enough to connect with that flow, which can look, there's many different ways that will manifest. But some part of us in our heart of hearts, in our core of cores, knows when we're connected, when we're aligned. So that's the number one purpose. And if you're connected with that flow, you're learning, you're growing. Your perspective is always getting bigger. So that's what he would say. Ultimately, we started out with, if we look at the state of the world and we get in fear, then we're going to immediately go to conflict. And one of the things that Don Juan talked about is the warrior's way, is the way to overcome this, playing the same part over and over. And what are we battling with? He said, well, it's not with other human beings. It's not with our fellow men and women. And he said, ultimately, it's not. It's out there on the horizon, he would say, where we cease to be the human being, and whether we cease to be identified with this one role, is one way to say it. And he said it's not a battle, ultimately. It's an acquiescence, but it's acquiescing to that bigger flow, where you really, I really come into the room and I really want to get a point across in class, and if I see everybody's maybe not responding to that, that's not where they are, I have a choice. I could keep hammering it, or I could shift and find something that's going to be resonant and where they are, that they can receive. And it's not because it's more advanced what I have. It's probably just something that I was more enchanted with, about checking in and seeing if that's what they're going to respond to. So that's just a simple example of following the flow. That's the whole purpose. And I was given a name that means flow. The name Nyei goes to mermaid and flow and naiad, and it's about flow. And so I didn't come in super fluid. So it's a journey. I want it to be right. If you're right, that doesn't really always match with flow. But it doesn't mean that we're a will-o'-the-wisp. We have no center, and whatever you say, whoever you are. No, it's that resilience and strength. The fluidity and the strength. And for me, also beauty. Taisha Abelard talked about that too, beauty and strength. And resilience, flexibility. So the tensegrity structure, you look at, Carlos was very inspired by that it's organized. Cells, for example, is one example. It's organized by its flexible members. That's really what gives it the shape. We used to think it was the exoskeleton, or not the exoskeleton, the external part of the cell. But they're looking at that. There's these strands in the cytoplasm that are super adaptable, and they make decisions. And that it has an integrity. It's a cell. It doesn't stop being a cell, but it's an adaptable cell. So for me, it's about following that flow, and ultimately that's a joy when I'm aligned with that flow. It might not always be convenient. For sure, a lot of times it's not. But there's something, there's a joy, there's being on purpose, there's seeing, that it's the light shining in my eyes and whoever I'm dealing with, then I know, okay, there's some alignment. Or, hey, the light's shining in me and it's not for them, but I'm not going to get completely unglued by that. I'm going to find a way to respond. That's, and one of the vehicles for me is music. Carlos encouraged us to follow whatever follow your passion, follow what brings you joy, follow what helps you find that alignment. So I played flute. I started out as a music student in school, and I would get bogged down by the competition aspect of it, and ultimately abandoned it for a while. And he's like, well, why don't you play for a different purpose? And I meet many musicians now who have that story. It's like, I'm playing to get, #1 prize, or make somebody else, impress my teacher or whatever, or my parents, or be whatever it is. And it's like, over time, I got to discover there's so many different purposes to music. Music can be a really direct channel, so to speak, a direct way to bring in that connection with the infinite, because I get to bypass, we all get to, you get to bypass language. Our nervous systems love rhythm. We get aligned, we kind of all agree, and we can really harmonize with each other. If I'm playing an instrument, I have to listen and at the same time to play with the other musicians. It becomes really clear. So that's a vehicle for me too. So that's one of the things that I'm here to share.
Yeah, I started out as a musician as well, and one of the
I suspected that with the song project.
Right. Yeah, of course. And one of the people that I read when I was younger was G.I. Gurdjieff. Do you know who Gurdjieff is?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm aware of Gurdjieff. I'm not.
No. Well, one of the things that really stuck out to me that he said was that at one time, dancing and song and music was a way of moving their spirit. Not an expression of the self, but a way of shifting their sandwich point, basically. And it's become, like you were suggesting, it's become an expression of the self as opposed to what it can do, which is move us into other awarenesses. I never looked at it like that until I read that fellow say that. It's funny the impact of just seeing something written on a page.
Yeah, it's really important what we see printed. Carlos will talk about, one of the ways to connect with energy also is through writing, and that's one of the things that he did, and he called it readers of infinity, that he is really seeing on the horizon, certain words would come to him. He would work on a script, and then he would put it on a board, very clean, neat, have it and then he'd go to sleep and let the dream body work on it, let other things come in. Also with the music and the dance, he would hook our attention. We'd do these tensegrity movements and counting, and there's elaborate sequences, and then the sequence would shift maybe the next day or 2 days later, or there's more added to it. So you have to continually be on your toes to follow and keep up. So hook our attention that way. And then at a certain point, he would turn on, the music. He would find music that really, for him, music that would wake up the energy body, and we'd dance, and that's so joyful when you're dancing with and you have the shared intent to wake up the spirit. I totally agree. I think that's in our DNA. That's in our ancestral heritage. That's really, don't you think that's where music and dance really comes from?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what did Carlos think of modern times? I mean, you mentioned that he said it's 1:45 to midnight, 5 to midnight. What was midnight? What did midnight signify for Carlos?
That's a great question. He said, look, we're running out of time for this excessive fixation on me. And he would enjoy himself, observing that around him. He would point it out to us. He would, say you see people walking just, at the intersection, and we are looking down at our toes. He said, because that's where our awareness is. It's supposed to be covering our whole energetic sphere. We're supposed to have this glowing coat of awareness, but it's been sort of chewed down, and we're just down here. He said, even with that little bit of awareness, we went to the moon. So imagine if we can regrow all of this. but we'll run out of time if we don't start to really claim some of this ancestral heritage that we have and claim it, reclaim it. We've taken a journey as human beings, and he would say, that's what Don Juan said, shamanism, is connecting those visible and invisible realms, is a journey of return, So you had that question earlier about, do we have to go into struggle and suffering? I don't know, but it looks like we did in the past, it's a journey of return. And so we've taken maybe a journey in humanity of disconnection. We have taken that journey of, we want to go down in and get more oil, more energy reserves by drilling deep in the earth and messing up the whole, geology there and the energy. That's disconnected. And so for him, it's gone to his extreme, and we have a choice. And that choice isn't so much about convincing other people, it's about each individual making their own decision, which way do you want to go? And really, one individual, one individual, if we look at awareness as an environment, you said awareness is an environment. If one individual expands their awareness, that opportunity is now there for everyone. And that for him is another energetic fact, that facts derive from seeing energy directly as it flows. And it might not be visual, you might feel it or sense it, but perceiving that directly. So we have a chance to do that, each one individually. But he would say, take all the time in the world, but hurry. Right. Also. Not helter-skelter hurry, but, it's time. We have all the tools. We really do. We have so much information available to us. We do have a growing consensus of people. This project reflects that. People who are waking up, and we wake up maybe in stages, some of us might do it in the blink of an eye, most of us, I think it's stages.
So what did he see as the end? Did he ever talk about an end goal for humanity? Obviously, in a smaller context, the Warriors Party combined their awareness to achieve something together. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that you're into community. You're into the concept of a mass consensus. Mm-hmm. But obviously, there's like 6 billion people on the planet, and 6 billion people aren't going to wake up. Unless something magical can happen to us, regardless of what we're doing. Do you see that there is something happening that doesn't necessarily include the whole? In other words, can things be turned around in this awareness on this world, or is there something that is being worked on from a group of people to shift their awareness as Don Juan did with their party? Does that make sense to you? What I'm asking? Sorry.
Go ahead.
These are extraordinary times, and it's not a coincidence that Carlos brought these books out in the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. And he's influenced people that you see, just even The Matrix, for me, is an obvious influence of Don Juan. I'm sure you're aware of the movie. It's mm-hmm. totally his world explained in a nice Hollywood cool film. And a lot of people use that who would never ever read those books or even believe anything that they're saying, but they understand the concept of what that is saying.
The thing, the Matrix, there would be one place where a key difference, which would be the Matrix is focused on the one. There's somebody who is the one.
Right.
That model is really, if you ask me, it's obsolete.
Right.
And that's why Don Juan would say the lineage ended with, with Carlos. Right. In their time, what was available was this secretive tradition. It wasn't practical or possible for them to open it out. And so, Don Juan left with a party of seers. Hey, in our time, the word is out. So if we're really looking at a path with heart, is that a path with heart? Freedom for me and the hell with you. I don't think so. I don't feel that way. There's such an opportunity for us together. Does that mean that we all 7 billion people, or however many it is right now, have to agree? I don't think so either. But he would talk a lot about critical mass, and that's something that we're focused on. If you can create an agreement, again, and that's the interesting thing. The individual really counts, and I think our communities really count. If we start really functioning in local communities, whatever local is to us, because local, it might be geographically local, or it might be some interest that you have that you share with other people online, and there's online events and things like that. But in the communities that you're a part of, if you're really starting to really act as a community, and that's each individual's choice, hey, I'm going to listen to the collective intelligence, and I'm going to really see the possibilities in each person in the room, rather than starting to rank them by hierarchy of who's cool and who isn't, and who's going to serve me, and but really see what are the possibilities, see their best, see their gifts, see where they light up, and start to work with that. Or if there's somebody else, around you who's really has that ability to see it, to observe and learn from them, and really, that's community. That's really where we came from. We didn't come from this isolation and disconnection, loneliness. Our heritage, and that's what shamanism really was at the root. It's to serve the community. And a community that's really working, the individuals in the community are also nourished and fed, but there's a greater intelligence in that community. If we have communities like that, that also is going to wake up the consciousness of the greater planet. Does that mean if every single person doesn't agree that we're all in trouble? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's critical mass, and I think that I feel that if you can really work effectively from your own alignment, from that joy, and share that with others, you can do so many things. And that's what Carlos, if we're looking at the end goal, there is no end in a sense, but it's to live these possibilities that we have. I mean, we're capable. Don Juan would talk about our instruments, our technological instruments are really just extensions, and they're pale comparisons to our own actual natural organic perceptual abilities. Why not access those while we're here in this amazing experience on this planet, and share this? There's, like he would say, that possibilities they really don't have an end. They're infinite. So why not, sustainable energy, one beautiful dream, food for everybody that they can grow locally and be really nourished by, and we could keep going. There's no end to the possibilities. What if we don't have to solve things through conflict? We could solve through listening, through some other means.
But that takes an elevated, that takes an evolved person. I mean, it obviously doesn't come naturally to us. It seems that that's something that has to be learned. No?
I'm not really of the nature of the school that the human is inherently, wants to clobber the other human. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there's maybe a blend of, we come in really, we come straight from infinity, and who's not happy around a baby, and the baby is just bringing a lot of joy. Of course, there's challenges too, but this just natural joy that everybody feels uplifted by, that's our heritage to me. That's our base nature, is possibility and discovery. And that being said, we look, we don't even have to look at humans. You look at penguins, and Carol Teagues would point out, the mommy and daddy penguin have one little penguin, and because that's the penguin that knocked off the other egg. Right. So maybe that's part of us too. Right. So
well,
we have a choice. Are we going to live out the penguin that is knocking off the other egg part of ourself, that part of is that it? The theater of the finite, or is it going to be the theater of the infinite? Which role would you play?
Yeah. There's two questions in there, two things there that I haven't gotten into yet, which is will. Have you got much time? Are I know are we good for a little bit more?
Yeah.
And also, is baby Don Juan as evolved as the Don Juan that achieved third attention through all that struggle and all that joy and all that experience of awesomeness of the pressure of the universe testing us and pushing us, and is
for sure the Don Juan that left at the end of his life has a greater awareness.
Right.
And that's what we come here for, is to expand awareness.
So that's the quandary that I try to bring up in my interviews, but that's why I bring up conflict a lot, because it seems to me we're all in denial about it. That we say it's not necessary, and then everybody proceeds to say how they got to where they are, right? Through you struggling with this other part of you that wants to be contracted and bitter and self-absorbed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like we all, and that's what kind of with Mary Williamson I noticed too, is that at first she'll say no, it's not innate, it's not necessary, and yet she'll proceed to go through how she learned through her struggles of running for office. So it seems like we're not putting it all together here. You're not putting it together what we're doing. Like you said, energetic facts are just obvious. You can't say that we should be some way when we're obviously some way else. So I'm trying to reconcile that with people. I'm trying to understand how people see that.
It's a really great exploration. I think it's somewhere in the middle, really, and that's, if I understand correctly or I've received it correctly, that's what my teachers have tried to convey, is that, you will have some part of you that is going to want to clobber the other sibling because you want all the yum-yums for you, all the attention of the parents and all that stuff, and that definitely would be part of my story. Some people don't come in with siblings, and maybe they came in with a different contract. There's the idea that we have certain things that we came to do, and contracts, so to speak, that we sign before we come in. Right. So maybe some people come in with more of that than others. Maybe that is innate. Maybe it is biological, that competition. The question would be, is that it? And the other thing that I notice, and that's been part of my journey too, when I was a child, there are different theories of how to raise children, but I'm no expert on that at all. But there was a culture that the children should be seen and not heard, and they have these impulses that need to be trained out of them, and it's bad. And I think we put that on the animals too. They're savage, and some cultures will put it on other cultures, and I don't really buy that our inherent nature. You had the beautiful Anna Breitenbach. You had that interview with her. I just could cry when I look at the work that she's doing. It's just so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Well, that's somebody working in silence. And she's not approaching the baboons or the jaguar saying, I'll teach you not to attack and maul. That usually if some creature is attacking and mauling, there's something that happened. If it's really out of balance like that. But, we do have this issue about these little birds that will knock the other eggs out of the nest. So I don't think that's sewed up and tied up with a bow yet. But I do think that it's in between it. And my training, it tells me that there's a choice, and that's called evolution. Could we evolve past those aspects of us that are not so constructive, that don't really enhance our lives, other people's lives, other people's experience? Is it necessary, decades after my younger siblings were born, to keep being upset that there's other people in the room that might get more attention than me at a given moment? It's not functional. So, that you hear a lot about fight or flight, and we get into sympathetic overdrive, where the sympathetic nervous system that gets our blood racing and our breath and tells the digestion to take a break. And we spend too much time there, we can't really dream, right? There's some choice in that. That's an involuntary response on some level, but how long do we want to keep doing it? And there's a functional aspect to it, but why do we want to keep holding on to it past its function? That's the question that I think that you brought up. I mean, what you've just said brings up. And it's not really super complicated to decide that maybe it doesn't work to keep holding on tightly to that one role. And like I said, everybody maybe has little slightly different versions of it. But I just don't think that's our total picture either. That's all we are. And we have to bring in some sublime thing that's not there. It's there. And let's enhance it and let's expand it.
Right. Well, it must be a hell of an experience for something to go from everything to encapsulation. So, do you know what I mean? So yeah. I would imagine that if we're, as a baby, if we have the memory and experience of all, coming to this encapsulated experience, I imagine it must be a learning experience. And mind, the concept of mind is true and false at the same time, right? So maybe, it seems like if you just look at it in a very basic way, it all makes sense in a way. Why we would be struggling with this if we are that.
Yeah, that might be part of the conflict. There's some part of us that knows we're eternal, we're infinite. We have these infinite possibilities. There are certain scripts, I think, that we sign on for. It's not completely, hey, you can, people say, well, you can do anything you want. Yeah, but there's certain parameters that I think you signed up for that you're working with also that you don't want to miss the agreement. It's funny because there's an associate Tensegrity instructor, Teo Alfaro, who's, he's like a spirit brother, and he has a wolf sanctuary that he started, these wolf dogs that he created a sanctuary for, and he works with youth and things, and they connect with the wolf, and that helps them connect with their own inner being, their energy body. Very beautiful. He doesn't maybe call it energy body with them, but he and his wife they have a daughter who their firstborn who was born in November, and he was telling me she's now getting to where she's pulling herself up to stand up, and she's getting really sometimes very annoyed that she can't just walk like everyone else, So it's like this, and you see little kids, why can't I, so. But that's a healthy impatience. That's a healthy impatience to grow, to bring in some new skills and abilities,
but you'd have to call that conflict.
Next,
right? That would still be considered conflict, wouldn't you call it?
It's conflict, and that's maybe a healthy struggle, isn't it?
Right.
A healthy effort that she's making. But, there might be places where it really is a big effort, and it might be what we call struggle. So could we eliminate the places where the mind is creating the struggle? Okay, because there will be challenges. Definitely, we all face challenges that maybe I don't think I'm the only one where it comes and you're like, are you kidding? Really? And I've been very lucky. I mean, there's people that face things that, the strength of a human being is just incredible. My parents are the ones that, for example, my mother, Carlos, would say, I thought that I struggled, and he'd be like, I had basically upper middle class life, and my biggest pain was that my sister was cuter than me in my mind, or what, and I'm not mean to trivialize.
Right. Yeah.
That's something to deal with, but my parents come from a generation, they were born at the end of the Depression. There's some things that they, especially one of them, had to face, that she had to choose every day to to really look at what her possibilities were, rather than blame the people around her for what they tried to put on her, what the ways they tried to limit her, you know, things that they would tell her that she was capable of or not, and things that are much more in your face than that, and abusive, you know, and you see people that deal with things that are absolutely just incredible, and they come out strong, creative, constructive people, and you'll see people that don't have that much struggle and they don't do that much. And at the same time, you'll see all the variety. So is there one way? I'm not sure, you know, but for sure there's some struggle that's really not a struggle, that we make a struggle. Right. And the good news is that there's a choice on it. You know, whether my colleague Renata is, you know, going to want to hear my brilliant idea about a project that she started, you know, that'll be one, and I'm going to come in, it's another woman, and I want to give another idea and redirect it. Well, that's irritating, right? But that's an unnecessary struggle. Because I could play another part, and it really is a lot more fun if I play another part and go, oh, that's so, and really try to understand what she's doing, really listen. Okay, how can I support, where can I connect with that? What can I bring to that where I really can interface constructively? Where can I overlap with that in a helpful way, rather than you're taking my spot? Well, you know, back to the egg, pushing the egg out. Right. So
it's also a challenge for Renata then, if you just be honest and present her with that option of taking it personally or not, I suppose. Isn't that the dynamics between all people? That we struggle with maintaining. This is what I struggle with my people in my life. Not struggle. It's not a struggle, actually. This is the agreement that I have with the people in my life, is that we try to speak as honestly as possible and let the other person deal with that challenge, as opposed to me having to adjust my expression so that their self-importance won't be tweaked. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I do know what you're saying, and that's, there's, I can't really say whether that's good or bad for other people. I can just say for myself, that's something that that was my aegis for a while. Right. It's like, I'm just being honest, you know, and why can't they? And for me, there's a rigidity to that ultimately. And it's not about being dishonest. It's about shifting our orientation. That's different. It's about inhabiting another part of myself that maybe has been over there waiting for something to light it up. And that's the journey of awareness. So I'm not really traveling anywhere if my whole thing is, you know what, that's your self-importance, and you just go deal with it. Right. Sometimes, you know, there are times where if it's a life-threatening situation and you need to move somebody out of the way, or, you know, there are extreme circumstances where you just, hey, look, lump it, I gotta go, you know, or I gotta do this. Right. But that's, again, it's unnecessary struggle on a day-to-day basis. Hey, right. That's their job. I'm not the self-appointed teacher of everybody else, really. It's my job. What can I do to create the harmony, especially to create harmony, especially if that's one of my issues, is I want to be heard. Guess, this Carol Tiggs would say, guess what that means you're going to be doing? Right. And I'd be probably listening a lot. Right. She, got it. You know, you can't really understand what, you're not, how can you be heard if you can't hear? You're almost working on empty in a way. Not empty, but you're working from only part of your intelligence there, and from part of the greater intelligence, you know. There's all this intelligence around us, beyond the human, all this consciousness. If you keep wanting them to, you know, okay, tree, lump it, you know, this landscape will look a lot better without you, and besides, I always wanted, you know, a flat yard. Hey, that tree's been there for a long time. So maybe there's a way for us to adjust, and everybody gets to kind of everybody gets to share their best together in a different way. Does that make sense?
It does, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
So let me go to my final thing here. Not the
love
singing
the
yet. Not the singing yet, but the last question I usually ask.
I forgot about the singing.
Usually what I ask everybody is if you could speak to humanity, what would you say?
If I could speak to humanity, I would say be willing to consider that what may agitate you can also teach you, that experience can be a mirror for what your expectations are. And I would share that that's been my experience so far, so good. That we can have a sense of humor about it all as well. That if you're seeing something outside of yourself that bothers you, then what is inside of you that you can shift? Because we can't always shift the external, but we can do a lot with the internal. And it's really about allowing ourselves to play more parts in that theater of infinity that we can do every day. Yeah. And exhale. Please remember to exhale so that some new inspiration can come in.